Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Well, we're supposed to have a cold front move through today and some raining today and tomorrow, I believe, if I'm correct. But, you know, it's the weather, so you don't know if anyone's correct on it. But it was in the mid-60s overnight, so it didn't get really that cold. It's very humid and not warm, but just kind of that medium humid sticky. But they're saying for around here that the next day or so that the overnight lows will be down in the mid 20s and the daytime highs may only be up into the mid 40s. So we're going to have a bit of a winter blast come through in the next few days, and it looks like it'll last for 5 or 6 days, I'm going to guess. Maybe this is winter, the cold fall winter setting in, but it's a little early for that, so I suspect that's not the case. I haven't seen any like winter precipitation forecasts like snow, but we are supposed to get some good rain the next couple of days, and then after that, this cold blast. Might even have to fire up the fireplace if it's going to get down in the mid 20s at night. Anyways, just thought I'd mention that to you because I know most of you probably don't even care. Also wanted to mention, for those of you that come to our local meetings every month, that is this Sunday. So if you want to come, please do. We have a good speaker lined up, a retired ER doctor, and then I think myself and a couple other guys are going to be talking about something else medical related also that we'll be doing. So this Sunday, the 29th, if you come to the meetings normally or have in the past, it's the same time and same place as we've always had it. It's never changed. It's always been the same spot. So it's pretty easy to remember. Now, I'm noticing, and this could just be, I may be a little premature on this, but I have said so often on this channel that I believe, and this is just by my own assessment over the last few years, all of these things that happen that'll pop up and it'll garnish a lot of attention in the news. Maybe they are very serious, or maybe it's a little sketchy. It doesn't matter. That it's demanding a lot of attention. I mean, think back to the train derailment in Ohio, or other incidents like this. You know, the Ukraine, Russia, that one kind of lasted a little bit, have lasted longer. But for the most part, when these things pop up, if you'll notice, there's about a 2 to 3 week window that they're able to really garnish and demand and control the people's attention. And then after that, it starts to wane, and it's not talked about as much, and it kind of fades, and then there's something else that'll eventually come and take its place. I suspect that may be happening with the whole Israeli-Gaza conflict. I've noticed in the last couple of days, when I get on the different sources that I get on online to look at news and stuff, there's less and less talk about that. There's more other things. I mean, already we have this shooting incident in Maine, and then since then there's been, I think, 2 or 3 other shooting incidents, one at a military base, one it was either North or South Carolina, possibly somewhere else, maybe not, I don't know. You take in so much, it's hard to retain it all. But the point is I'm starting to see it kind of fade away. And I don't think it's because nothing's happening. It does appear that there's still a lot of conflict and a lot of fighting going on, a lot of rockets being dropped and a lot of bombs being dropped. But I'm seeing that kind of, it just, I don't know, it seems like people are starting to lose interest in it. They've grown tired of it. You know, the modern mind's attention span is like, this big. And so what that means is that we've got to move on to something else. We've got to catch people's attention and get them, continued in that heightened state of fear, because we can't allow people to just kind of become normal and calm and go about their normal business. We got to keep them in a state of fear. So I suspect either this conflict will escalate soon into something bigger, or a new thing will come along. Now, that I'm saying all that to kind of segue into the point of this video. While all these things do happen, and they are important, this whole thing that's happened in Israel. That's important. I mean, I know that there's conspiracy theories running around of what actually did happen, and how many people have died, and who knew what was really going to happen. Were certain things ignored and allowed to happen? I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about just looking at it on face value of what's transpired. It is horrific. It's bad. But you could say that with a lot of things. Maybe this is certainly one of the more worst things that we have seen happen in a very long time, but there's certainly bad things, tragic things that happen. But a lot of times it distracts us from things that, it's not that they're any more or any less important, but things that are more directly related to you. And that is something that is happening on a daily basis. And for instance, one of those is the illegal aliens. They're pouring across the border, folks. They're pouring into this country, and you can watch countless videos on the border. I watched one just this morning when I was having my coffee, and it's all males. Okay, not a woman or child among them. All men, young men, probably 20 to 30 years old approximately. And as they're coming through, the reporter guy is asking them, where are you from and where are you headed? Where are you from and where are you headed? And some of them didn't quite understand him because of the language barrier, but most of them from Nepal and New York, Cincinnati, Baltimore, all over the country. And that is what's happening. And some places are feeling the effects more directly than others. But when you're talking 250,000 plus, and let's be conservative, 200 to plus thousand, 200 plus thousand people a month are coming across the border pretty consistently right now. That is a massive amount of people coming into this country, and it's every month. Thousands of people a day are coming into this country every month illegally. And remember that 269,000 whatever number that Border Patrol said for last month, that was just at the southern border. That's not what came across from Canada. That's not what came into other ports of entry into this country. Many of them just fly in. They're riding boats and things like that. So we're talking hundreds of thousands a month. Those numbers, that's building very quickly, and it's spreading around the country. And like I said, there are certain areas that are obviously, there's concentration already, but they are everywhere. And it's going to become more of them everywhere. And that really, for us, and I'm not trying to sound selfish and everything, but for you and I, most of you that live in this country, that's going to affect us probably more directly and more greatly than most of the stuff that's happening in the Middle East or Eastern Europe right now. I mean, that's just the hard truth. It doesn't mean that we're not sympathetic to all these other causes, regardless of which side you fall on or if you're neutral. It does affect us more. And so we have to be aware of that. As I'm speaking, I'm gonna play this video, and I'm not gonna let you listen to audio. But basically the gist of it is this guy's in Georgia. It doesn't say which city. I'm going to assume Atlanta, but if you can tell, he's not in the slums. It looks like pretty much a middle-class neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it's certainly not in the ghetto. And he drives by a church, and there's a bunch of black men standing outside. And the guy that's recording it, you can tell by the sound of his voice, he sounds like he's probably black also. And he goes down the street, and then there's another church, and there's these black guys all over the place. And he points out that all of those people, they're not locals. They're not from there. They're all African. He actually stops and talks to one of them. The guy can't understand him because he's trying to talk in French, because they're all Western African. And he said that he's upset. He's like, these people, they're just dumping them off in our communities. They're just dropping them off here, and they're overrunning. And he said a lot of people think that, well, we're the same race. He said they're not us. He says they're from another country, and they're coming in here and they're taking over and all this kind of stuff. It's happening everywhere. The news wants to report kind of the highlights or the areas. There's this tit for tat with Texas and Florida and New York and California right now when it comes to busing and flying illegals everywhere. But the reality is it's happening everywhere. And this is going to affect us more directly, I believe, than a war in the Middle East or a war in Europe or a war in Asia. those will affect us most certainly. But this, the pouring in of hundreds of thousands of illegals every month into this country, we're collapsing because of that. We can't, even if every one of them, let's just pretend for a moment, and this is very pretend, if every one of them weren't criminal at all, if they all came here because they just want a better life, just the amount of people coming into the system that rapidly, the system can't build fast enough to sustain that. And pretty much every town, every community, every system that exists, and this is true everywhere in the world, is built to handle that much that's there. So if you live in a town that has 50,000 people, the food supply in that town, the grocery stores and the groceries coming in, is meant to handle 50,000 people. And that's pretty much it. The healthcare system in your town of 50,000 is designed to handle just 50,000, because people aren't going to spend, businesses and stuff, they don't spend hundreds of thousands or millions more to build out new hospitals that aren't needed. It's just what is needed, and that's it. And if you take a town of 50,000 and overnight drop 5,000 people into it or 10,000 people into it, it will overrun the system rapidly. Because there's not enough groceries, there's not enough medical systems, there's not enough housing, the schools can't handle that many people, the law enforcement can't handle it. It's overburdens a place rapidly. There doesn't have to be, 100,000 people dropped off in a town of 50,000 for it to overrun it. It's really just a small number can overwhelm the system. And we're seeing this in many, many towns in this country, and it's going to start getting worse. It absolutely is. And again, as of up until now, I'm only speaking of this from the perspective that these people are coming here to just live. They're not coming here to do harm. And then that's the other thing. How many of them are coming here to do harm? How many of them are of a criminal mindset? How many of them are of a terroristic mindset, or they're here for a purpose to do harm? It's very likely, just statistically speaking, this many people coming across the border, there has to be a certain criminal element to them, if not all of them, but at least a certain amount. We have to be aware of that. And while we may be distracted by all of these events that are happening that garner so much attention, this one never stops. This one never sleeps. The people are coming across the country, into the country daily. Every day. There are literally millions of people in South America, in Latin America, that are currently at any given time working their way to the border. It's estimated that between 2 and 3 million at pretty much any given time are in transit trying to make their way to the U.S. border. This is maybe one of the biggest threats that we have. Because when you look at it this way, then you add in disease that's being brought into the country. You add in criminal elements. You add in mental illnesses. This country is already so wrought with mental illness. Look at the shooter that's recently happened, and other things. You can just spend a few minutes online watching TikTok type videos. Don't be on TikTok. I'm not, and you shouldn't be. But you know what I'm saying. That there's such a massive mental illness epidemic in this country. There's a criminal epidemic in this country. The amount of crime that's increased. And then the burden on the whole system, a system that's not healthy right now. Our supply chain, our healthcare system, our education system, our first responder system, all of that. None of it's in a healthy state, meaning that it's doing good housing. None of it's in a good, healthy, robust state where we can say, everything's just running on at full steam, all 8 cylinders kind of thing. No, it's all in a very weakened, unstable state. And then we're dumping a bunch of illegals onto it. Again, even if there isn't some nefarious thing going on, even if there's not some nefarious, sleeper cells building up, or taking over a region or anything like that, if it's just pure innocent, and I know that's not the case, but I'm just hypothetically speaking, even if it was just purely innocent people pouring into this country, just wanting to do good and to have a better life, the fact that there's so many coming all at once in such a concentrated time span, it's going to overburden the system. It's not capable. I've spoken to so many people, and I get emails so often from people in towns that are seeing the brunt of this, especially along the border, close to the border. And the amount of problems that it's causing in a lot of these communities is just overburdened. It's not even just the criminal element. Like I said, it's the hospitals and the schools and all of this kind of stuff, the food supply, everything, the traffic, it can't handle it. It can't handle it. This is the destruction from within that we're seeing. We're allowing these people to come in here illegally and completely drain our system, a system that's already in a pretty fragile state. This is something that we can't forget. Yes, things that are happening, I assume there's probably going to be something else happen in the next week or two, because at that, people are going to lose interest in the whole Israeli-Gaza thing. So it's either going to have to expand and become something bigger, or something else will take its place, because that's just the cycles. People lose interest in things because they have such a short attention span. But regardless of that, don't lose sight on the big threat that's happening, and that is illegal immigration and the problems, just the plethora of problems that is causing, and the threat that's to us right here, right now, wherever you are. You're at a danger state because of this, because if it's not in your area already, it will eventually filter through, and you'll start seeing more and more in your area. So you need to be prepared for that. You need to be awake about that and stocking up and have a plan for as you see more and more of these problems come into your communities because of this. Folks, it's time to get your houses in order and to prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.